What is up, DTube, Steam blockchain? So today I want to talk a little bit about that internet levels out influence. This is a very interesting topic because first of all, if you look at the internet, there's no great way of get, let's say, an overall view of where everyone is. People sort of have to. People can just speculate a little bit because they visit just a few websites per day. But if you're looking at YouTube, if you're looking at video, if you're looking at what people are doing on the internet, eventually you sort of start to realize that even though there are some people that are way more popular than others on the internet, you are starting to see this level out effect. And the main reason why you start to see this level out effect, where it levels out the influence, is because you no longer need a mass audience to make a lot of value, especially now with blockchain-based systems where you can have whales, you can have more influence coming from certain places, and it basically makes it so eventually you start to fully move away from the clickbait stuff, and you don't have to chase people by using the lowest common denominator. I think that's what they're calling it. So for example, if you wanted to make, like, let's say a hamburger restaurant, I mean, it may be a good example of this lowest common denominator, that you can't do something that is super amazing in terms of food, because then you're just going to get a small audience. But if you really want to scale and grow big, you have to go with the lowest common denominator. So you just have to give people what they want, the salt and sugar and fat, and just put as much as that in as possible, and then just scale the product. Just give people what they want, right? And we're gonna see. So that's kind of like how clickbait worked, where you had to look at how can I do content that is not that intelligent, kind of shock-based. And the hamburger stuff, that is kind of like the clickbait of hamburgers is like McDonald's, where you just like get people the salt, the sugar, or the salt and fat and sugar and all this that they're using. Just make this product that just give them a short boost. A short boost. It's not that much long-term focus, but it doesn't really matter because they're gonna come back the next day and the next day and the next day. That's kind of like how clickbait works. But blockchain systems really eventually levels all this out, just because of that you, instead of, you don't have to chase 10,000 people anymore. You can use your brain and attract intelligence instead, and it's good. It's really good. Proof of brain is just a better system overall because it really does level out influence. So instead of it coming from just a few sources, you really level it out. And a big part about also why it's not just about the blockchain technology and the tokens and stuff like that, but it also what sort of levels out the influence is, what was I gonna say? I forgot about it right now. What was it? Wait a second. Oh yeah, it's the other thing that also makes it that influence starts to get leveled out is because everyone is doing information technology right now. Information technology, everyone is doing basically the same thing. They are getting information, they are looking up information, they're comparing it to other people's information. Eventually you get to a state where everyone is having the best information, because if humans let their intelligence be used, then eventually they're going to move into the best systems eventually. And that is also like the big key why stuff is going to be leveled out a lot, because everyone is eventually going to have access to the same information, right? There is not person that is doing something super magical in this digital realm. Everyone has I mean, everyone has access to the same planet, and they can write stuff, they can take photos now with their phone, they can make videos. They Stuff gets really leveled out, and especially roles, different roles that people used to play with different jobs. Now, when everyone's moving into IT, information technology, I know I exaggerate a little bit when I say everyone, because it's not all industries, but it's really taking a lot of industries by storm, and and just because everything's so connected with how life is like inclusive. So all of these sections of society is like connected, and a lot of them comes, or many of them revolve eventually around IT, because all the businesses, they always want more customers, right? And then they have to make everyone be an owner, so everyone owns shares in everything. So all the profits flows back to humans instead of just a few people, a few gateway keepers that maybe read a book a few years before you, or maybe they're a little bit older than you and they know a little bit more information. But everyone should basically be able to be an owner, right? In all businesses, everything that people are using on a daily basis, they should be some kind of owner in that, right? All the businesses. And all these businesses that makes every human owner in that business, they're always going to be in business, right? Because they have a lot of people that cares about them, and that is invested, and that is going to look out to see so they stay in business, right? Because it's not just that, because people can more clearly see then that it benefits themselves, right? So it's really cool to see influence being leveled out, and a lot of stigma is being removed, because when everyone is sort of doing something, or a lot of people is sort of doing something, it feels more natural for a lot of people to create stuff. It doesn't have to be this like business aspect around eventually creating stuff. It can become very, very natural, authentic, organic, even though it may take a few years for people to sort of train. I would say that it's a muscle that needs to be trained. It maybe take a few years for a person to become really good at be authentic, organic, or stuff like that, because it really is a muscle, and be able to create content also with that. And try to make it a little bit engaging or exciting. Try to find interesting topics, try to make a good thumbnail and stuff like that. Like, these small things really is really good, because people see the person cares a little bit, and that's kind of cool. And if everything goes along the way it's going now, then stuff should become even more leveled out in the future. And it's kind of cool, because with this new technology, eventually people get more free time, right? So there's always going to be people ready to consume content, to take stuff in. And this is kind of nice, because people that are really good at creating stuff, they're going to attract some kind of they're going to attract someone at least. And there's always going to be a pool of people consuming stuff, and like leveling out, where basically they used to take in, back in the days, people used to have a few sources where they got the information from. Information was scarce. But when information is everywhere, it's kind of good, because people can sort of they can cross-check everything, and they can see that humans are not really that different, even though, like, the essence of a human being, yes, that can be very different if a person sort of if they sort of develop themselves and stuff like that. But you see with YouTube and stuff like that, and how people are creating content, and how they are inviting other people to do collaborations and stuff like that, and everything just gets better with collaborations. Everything really just gets better, and people are seeing the benefits. People seeing the benefits of it doesn't really cost them that much to sort of do things, and every time like a person is making their own sort of content instead of, and they sort of becoming these prosumers, producers, and consumers in one, they are sort of they're sort of, when they're creating stuff, they're sort of helping to balance a lot of systems out, and you really see how it's eventually gonna eat up the whole world, which is something that I talked about a little bit in the past, and a lot of stuff eventually just becomes so level out. So eventually it's just computers that are pinging each other back and forth, because clearly that's the maximum efficiency eventually. So that's kind of cool to see. And what humans basically going to do with the more of the time over is they're just going to keep cross-check information. So when a person has more free time over, they have more time to do research and development, sort of look at systems and sort of see, even if it's just like a millimeter improvement here and there, all of these really compounds really fast. Just as we've been seeing with earnings, these small improvements, these small things that people improve, it adds up, especially when eventually thousands or millions or billions of people do micro improvements in efficiency, stuff like that. That's why we always, on smartphones, gadgets, always has these updates on the apps. They're always getting a little bit better, mostly. And smartphones getting a little bit better, mostly. There are some small things here and there that concerns people, sure, but the level out effect is really, really cool to see. And it's just going to keep happening. It's just going to keep happening until you have the ideal level out system. Of course, stuff can also, there's a lot of stuff that can sort of slow things down. If some event happens, something like that, there's nothing like predictable in nature. So if some big thing happens, it may change things a few years and may go back a couple of years, but eventually you should start to see a comeback. Yeah. So progress, many times it can take backward step, sometimes decades even, but I don't think we're going to see it this time around. Maybe a few years, but not decades, just because the rapid speed of technology, it changes stuff so fast, and people see the benefits of it, and that's the key thing. Why it's like nobody really has any interest in attacking technology, because it really makes everything better, right? It does change some systems, yes, because of the level out effect, but eventually people see the benefits of that. That doesn't mean that a person still cannot have like some people think it's negative that you get a balance out effect. It's not as you, I mean, if a person works way harder, of course you can get way more influence than some other person, but in general people are gonna be quite satisfied with do a little bit of work and promote others and do these small improvements on a daily basis, and they're gonna see that is what gives them the most, let's say, satisfaction. And yeah, because there's going to be so much value in having everyone on the same kind of technology and have everyone access to the same information. That is going to be more value in many ways than doing stuff for yourself, let's say. And yeah, so you're trying to make these systems where you get maximum value for smallest payment out. And as more people get onboarded, eventually that levels it out even more. Even though it sounds super utopian, but I mean, if you look at stuff, you can see it, that where value flows are gonna be leveled out in many ways. Yeah, and it's mainly because like one person can do what 10,000 people could not do 100 years ago. And that changes things. Like, smartphones are really powerful stuff. Smartphones are really, really powerful stuff. And it takes a long time to basically see how powerful they are. But I think the more people are sort of starting to be aware of it, that it's not just an entertainment gadget, but that it actually can, that when you're creating stuff, people are actually consuming it, right? It's not just for one person. People are consuming it, and people are changing the way they look at stuff after that, because they see that someone has their best interest at heart, and that sort of is cool for them. Yeah, but I wanted to talk a little bit about that, and it's, yeah, it really does level things out. Have a great day, YouTube, and Steam Blockchain. Bye bye.